Hi, and welcome back to GoingBallistic.org's podcast. My name is Donna Carter, and I am the president and founder of Going Ballistic. And today we have a guest I'm so excited about. She is a renowned author and a Gold Star wife, Barb Allen. So stay tuned. Hi, Barb. Welcome.
That's a cool intro you have.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Christopher, who did
it. Yeah, that's great.
Yes. No. So I just want to thank you for coming on the show today. And so Going Ballistic was fortunate enough to be invited. It was actually Colonel Alan West that told me about your event. And it was the Great American Summit, and it was in Dallas at Gilley's. Mm-hmm. And I got to meet Barb. I was unfortunately not there when she did her speaking, but I'm just so excited to meet people like me who are just real, genuine, no ulterior motive. You know, I think as I was on the other side of this thing and just it looks so glamorous, and like what we're up to is to somehow get famous or whatever, and that is not the case. Like, my hope is that someone knows me or realizes, like, this is not me. This is not something that I intended to do on any level. I really just felt compelled, and I feel like you're the same way. And I have met others along this journey, and it just gives me hope. And Going Ballistic is all about letting people know that we don't have to change laws and elect officials and do all this kind of stuff, that there are people laying in wait like you who want to get something done right now. So tell us a little bit about you and what you have going on.
Wow, I love that. There were so many things that you just said. I'm like, ping, ping, ping. There's a point there, point there, point there. I love it. And you could unpack every single thing you just said and turn it into a full conversation, right? So I'll give just a quick little background so your listeners know where I'm at and why we're connected, right? So you came to our Great American Summit, which is an extension of our Great American Syndicate community. But first, a Gold Star wife, a lot of people don't know this. I didn't know what it was until I became one. And I even took my stepdaughter to an Air Force recruiter a couple weeks ago, and the recruiter didn't know what a Gold Star family is. So I think it's important to just lay that out, because a lot of times you say I'm a Gold Star wife, people are like, oh, congratulations, they think you're a Gold Star, it's good. So a Gold Star wife is actually, I am called that because my husband was killed in military service. In my instance, he was killed in Iraq. And so a Gold Star family member is one who has lost a family member in military service, as a direct connection to their military service. So that is what that means. And that's what drives me, right? You're pulled, and I'm dying to hear more about what pulled you. Like, for me, it's very obvious what drew me into this work that I'm doing now to connect Americans and circumvent the politics and legislation, especially here in New York. We have to find workarounds to our lunatics running our state. So we have to find workarounds while we try to fix that. So you definitely have to address that and try to get better people in office. But in the meantime, you have to help yourself, right? So we're trying to be the workaround to overcome and empower ourselves in spite of the lunacy going on. But my pull is clear that my husband died in service to our country. And so I feel like I have to do something to make sure his sacrifice and all those who have served and sacrificed with him aren't doing so for nothing. Like, why just hand over everything that so many people have given so much for, and everything that we hold dear, right? Our very freedoms. I mean, so, and there's so many ways to do that. And so your organization is a huge part of that, because where are we without our law enforcement officers? And it has a special place to me because I know what it's like to get that folded flag. I know what it's like to have that doorbell ring and your world disappear underneath you, and the pain of raising children, and all of that through it. And so if the work you're doing by helping provide, which by the way, you shouldn't have to do, right?
Yeah.
Be done already. But the fact that you're stepping in where there is a gap is huge. And that's such an example for other people. But if the work you're doing can prevent one doorbell from ringing, it will have been worth it. And you might never know, right? But
Mm.
but you'll know somehow. So I want to thank you for doing that.
Thank you. Okay, so tell us a little bit about the books. I know you have some books. I'm
Yeah.
so excited because I've ordered them, but I have not gotten to look at them.
Oh,
So I just want to talk about that. And of course, Barb's going to be at our event on July 15th. And so you'll get to hear more about everything she's doing. But so, yeah, I want to know about that.
all right. Awesome. On my first book, I have 3 books out. The first one is titled Front Toward Enemy. And that's a literal and figurative term. My husband was murdered by an American soldier while in Iraq. And that was the staff sergeant of the unit who was doing bad things and being chaptered out. So he murdered my husband and the commanding officer with a claymore mine that has Front Toward Enemy stamped on it, right? So literally and figuratively, he was the enemy. He was then a 3.5-year court-martial process, which was excruciating. I went to Kuwait for it, all these things. And then he was acquitted, even though he pled guilty. So it was just horrific, one layer of tragedy after another. So I wrote that to tell the true story of what happened, since it was never revealed in public, right? So I wrote that. I had to get the record straight. How to Woo a Widow is my second book. It's a fiction book. I love it. It is for our generation. It's a Steel Magnolias kind of feel. For this generation, it's Firefly Lane kind of feel, both of which are great chick flicks, chick books. So, and I think those are important. Women like to feel, to laugh, to connect, to cry, to all of that. And I needed to do that. So I love that book. And my most recent is What Not to Wear to a Murder Trial and Other Tips Tragedy Taught Me, which is sort of, a serious but also lighthearted look at trauma, tragedy, resilience. And it pulls from my story and a lot of the people that I've met along the way and their stories of resilience and overcoming adversity, which you can apply to all levels of adversity in your life.
Well, and for me, I see kind of that common theme of just the dishonesty that we're faced with continuously, it seems like these days. And just the nonsense that really is focused on rather than the truth. Like, it always seems like there's something that they want to talk about that is just adverse to the conversations that we should be having.
Yeah, it's look over here, and meantime, all of that is going on. The Titanic exploration is the most recent example of this, where the administration knew what happened to these people on the very day, but fed us this narrative, this dramatic, agonizing narrative for how many days through the week. They knew on Sunday that these men had been killed in the submersible, but for days afterwards, they dripped out a false narrative in the media that we all, people got in a frenzy over, because it was very dramatic and people were fighting over all different things of it. Meantime, Hunter Biden whistleblower was coming out and spewing all these things about Hunter Biden. So, I mean, it's just constant, and it's exhausting. We can get fatigued from trying to figure out what's real, what's not real. You feel an obligation to stay on top of things and know the truth, but then you feel a frustration and futileness for doing so, because what does the truth matter when no one's held accountable, or we can't do anything about it? So we're in a blender, all of us. We're just in this blender.
Yeah, and I didn't even know about that.
Yeah.
And part of how this started is because I tried to get involved on kind of a local level and take the avenues that were suggested by the powers that be, and was quickly kind of just disgruntled and, door slammed in my face kind of thing, which, that's what it takes for me to get the message. So, but yeah, just really mean girled by, local establishment, whether, it was political or just social or all of that kind of stuff. Because this whole thing and just like Washington, and I really don't care who people vote for. I mean, I'd love to just say it like, I love you no matter who you voted for. I am not mad that people are voting for Biden. Like, it breaks my heart to think that someone could be so deceived. And I just want to do everything I can to just re-engage people on that level. I mean, like, hope, faith, and love, right? And the greatest of these is love. And it's really just that Maya Angelou quote about people don't care what you have to say until they know that you care. Right. And I do. I mean, I care so much about, of course, the kids in the classroom who they don't know anything about political stuff, or, the people on the front line, whether it's the soldiers or the local law enforcement. At the end of the day, hopefully it's not going to matter who you voted for if you call 911.
Right.
And they are chipping away at all of that. Like, I don't know if I trust my doctor. I don't know if I trust my teachers. I don't know if I trust the FBI. You know what I mean? And so this corrosive, just decay of everything really is part of the motivation behind going ballistic, because we keep handing everything off, going, here, we need this and we need this and we need this. And in the meantime, there's 270 mass shootings already this year. And all I know is that at the end of the day, if something happens, I'm going to ask myself, what could I have done as a mother, as a friend, as, a citizen? And we have to take personal responsibility for our own safety.
Yeah. One of my really best friends, I mean, I don't know, 25 plus years she's known me. And that takes a lot to stay on the ride with Barb for 25 years. It takes a lot, So God bless her. But she has dedicated herself to running a horse rescue, and she's rescued and cared for and adopted hundreds of horses. And when I was initially having a conversation with her, and because that's just one example, you just see, she can rescue so many, but there's thousands others, and I'm like, what do you focus on? Does it frustrate you? And she said something to me, which I have applied to really the rest of my life. And she said, Barb, we can't all save the world, but we can all tidy up our own little corner. Right. And so I thought that was just so simply put, but so profound. Like, it wasn't, all eloquent. It's not going to be, famous quotes and all this, but how true is it? And how hard does that hit the mark when, just like we can't all be the solution to all things. But if every single one of us found something that speaks to us, that pulls to us, even if we don't understand what the pull is, and we just follow the pull to do something about it, it doesn't matter if it's rescuing kittens or helping sex trafficking victims or putting on a uniform and serving, or whatever it is, you're doing some version of good. And imagine if the billions of people on earth all chose one thing, right? So that's it's important. And so you're following that and you're doing that. And I hope you inspire other people to do that as well.
Well, and I'm inspired by you. I mean, I feel like I'm just this little baby. And so I know it's a 501c3 kind of thing. And so you're just the adolescent, right? And it's a whole lot easier to envision myself, 5 years in or whatever, because people that have been doing it forever, you think, well, doesn't even apply. And so it really takes all of us, and it takes staying and being that one that's 3 years in and 5 years in, you know what I mean? Because you have to get to that point, and that's really, really, really hard. And giving up is always so easy. And, like I have a life, right? Like you have a life. This is not like I can't wait and I'm sitting around all day to do this,
Right.
like
Mhm.
this is a small part of my day that I'm willing to give up because I want to be able to look my son in the face and say, Mama tried.
Right.
And be able to sleep at night if something were to happen and know, well, I did everything I could.
Yeah. And that's what it's about, right? And people get to that point and they do something or they don't. So it is good to connect with other people who kind of take the leap because it is not easy. The nonprofit world, man, you think, oh, we're all doing such good things. We all have such big hearts. We all want to help one another. Heck no, man, it is kill or be killed. They will eat your young and rip it right out of your hands to do it. It's crazy. So to find the people that you can trust, that are that want to elevate you, that want to rise together, or you find the people who are ahead of you who are willing to turn back and reach a hand out because they had somebody ahead of them turn back and reach a hand out, and so now they're paying that forward. But you have to be really diligent about finding those people and cultivating those relationships, and it's a shame you have to kind of have the one eye open mindset, but you do. But then once you find those core people, it's so worth it, right? Because I'd rather have a small circle that I depend on and trust than a giant one where I'm looking to plug every gap, right? I know my circle. I know I can count on them, and I know we have each other's backs. And so together then we kind of roll out to the next layer of the circle, right? So that's what you'll be doing, and that's what we're all doing, really, our whole evolutions in whatever path it is we're taking.
But everything you said there is so like cyclical, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
what I hope is that we reach one person who has been forgotten, like me. It's not as if I wanted to be political or wanted to do any of this, but yet I thought, hey, like that I can do, or I'm mad enough that I'm not going to do nothing. And that's why, so for the event in July, I keep telling everyone, like, I want it to be statewide. I want it to go out to, the biker group that feels forgotten. But
Right.
I promise you, if it all goes to, where, and what, that I'd rather have them come into my rescue, or
Yes.
at least on the front line with me, and we're
Right.
not engaging. These nonprofits want to stay so exclusive that that's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what they do. They exclude everybody, and you see the same people going to all the events, and that is killing us. It's killing
Yep.
us on a political, and here again, on both sides of the aisle. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they're both guilty of it. This whole problem, in the majority of everything that's been perpetuating, i.e., if we pigeonhole just the one thing that I focus on, which is like mass shootings, it's getting worse and worse and worse and worse. Like we've had no positive effect at all. And so unless we widen our reach to people who are capable but just not engaged, then we're never going to be able to make up the lost ground, because the lost ground is because we continue to, fish the same hole, and it's
Right.
getting us nowhere.
Yeah. So it can be very frustrating. Giving up is certainly tempting, but I hope you don't, and I hope this is just the first event you have of many, because it's important. And so you have to come together and work together. And I think when people come out to events like ours and to events like yours, I think that's where sometimes it's hard to know what you're getting into. You just have to go and experience it. And then you walk in and, people come to our event, and I don't know how many times, and you'll probably hear this too. People have said, oh my gosh, I didn't know what to expect. I thought it was going to be A, B, or C. And most people, for us, they say, some Confederate flag waving, like MAGA fest and that kind of thing. and all the things they've heard about people who speak on what me and Dave speak on, and which tend to have conservative leaning values. They think that we're, racist, homophobes, transphobes, horrible people. And then they come in and they say, oh my gosh, you guys are nothing like what I thought you were. I'm so happy I came. We had one girl come to our event. She was from Utah, and she said she heard one of our speakers, who's a 2-time Gold Star family member, Ryan Weaver, Ryan Weaver was active duty service, a Black Hawk aviator. His brother and brother-in-law were both shot down and killed on active duty service. And she heard him speak. And she said afterwards, wow, I'm so glad I came to this event. My father raised me to hate the military. I thought the military, everybody in it, was evil. I hated them. I thought our military should be dismantled. She went on about all these things. She'd been spoon-fed about the military. But hearing this one speaker opened her eyes up in such an emotional and powerful way. Now she wants to support our military just from coming to one event, hearing one person. So you never know. Now, if she was the only person who came to our event, and if Ryan Weaver was the only speaker who spoke at our event, and she took that out into her world and had a conversation with her dad, or changed how she felt, or supported the military, had that. I mean, do you see the power of that? Right. So, and Ryan Weaver was not our only speaker, and she was not the only attendee. And so you don't know how many other people had that impact where they're going to take it out into the world. And I suspect people will feel that when they come to your event as well. And it doesn't matter. I mean, it does matter. It does matter. Size does matter, right? Like you want hundreds of people there and nothing. If that didn't happen, and if you had 5 people show up, and those 5 people took what they felt and heard and were moved to do out into the world, versus 500 people coming, where maybe only 5 of them did something anyway, right? So you just never know. And it takes just repetition. I don't know what the saying is, but about, the only person you can't beat is the person who doesn't give up, right? So that's what you got to do. You got to be the person who just doesn't give up.
No, I love that. I love it. And it's all true. I mean, I think, and so I'm reading, right? So this is the funny thing. And I think this is really God, right? God, I felt compelled, right? Called to do something. I couldn't do nothing. And so then it turns into, well, I probably ought to study up a little bit on this, so I know a little bit about what I'm talking about. And let's be honest, what I'm reading now is just the Anti-Communist Manifesto by Jesse Kelly. And the things that we all think like, oh, wow, this is brand new information. It's all been played out before. I mean, this common thread that we're talking about is the fact that we are a Judeo-Christian nation that was fundamentally built on a belief structure in a creator of the universe. And that's a thing. Like that is literally what America is and was and should be. And then there's this other thing, this opposing thought process, and we can, call it evil or communism or sugarcoat it into progressiveness or socialism, and really it's all just a tiny trickle into the same thing, which is no God. And it is a horrible result for a individual, a nation, a people. And we've seen the destruction. And I was in high school in the 80s. And so I didn't know anything. We didn't study Mao or Stalin, or, you know what I mean? I knew they were bad people that did some bad things. The only one that we sort of learned about was Hitler. And even then it was a little bit, but like, oh, it was so traumatic. Maybe you shouldn't know exactly what happened.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I mean, instead of being honest, like they will put you in a camp and starve you to death or gas you because you fall out of line. Like that's the truth. And it's not pretty. And it's not like it doesn't happen. It has happened repeatedly. And nations from the beginning of time have turned their back on God, whether it was 400 years,
Mhm.
2,000 years ago or whatever. Like it never ends well.
No, it doesn't. And do you ever, I'm a crime, I pay attention to it. Obviously, I did even before my husband was murdered, but now I pay attention even more, right? And so you see the crime stories, and 9 times out of 10, I know I'm gonna say 100% of the time, you see a story. So there's always at least one person saying, "Oh, you just never thought that would happen here. We never thought it would happen to us." And I mean, blah, blah, blah. Why? I mean, that's our problem. We all think that it's not going to happen to us. I thought that. I thought of all the things. I'm like, well, at least we live in this country. You see all these terrible stories around the world. Like, oh, thank God. Well, thank God I'm American, because that would never happen here. How quickly we forgot. I didn't experience the Great Depression. I didn't experience the Holocaust. I didn't experience any of that. So it's real to me because I've heard about it and I've listened to speakers who experienced it and all that, but I didn't live it. It didn't directly impact me. So how quickly we forget, how quickly we just get lulled into complacency. And that's what happened, where we all got lulled into complacency. Bam, there. That's what these forces were just waiting for. Let it get a couple generations removed, and then we'll hit them again and we'll try again. And that's what's happening now. We all thought it wouldn't happen here. We got caught off guard. This isn't a Pearl Harbor attack. I mean, 9/11, it's not a 9/11 literally in the literal sense, but figuratively, it's another 9/11, right? It's being done so diabolically this time. And it's
Well, and
harder
I
to
love
fight.
that word complacent.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. And so, and I know we're running out on time, and people probably don't want to hear us gab all day, although I could. Is what are we going to do? What
Right.
side of this do you want to be on when it comes down? And all emotion aside, and Lord knows I can get real emotional about it, is what we're doing is failing. We're failing our kids. We're failing our communities. We're failing our healthcare system. I mean, this is perpetuating to self-destruction. And whether it's just pointing at it, like going, wait, I know some truth, and this is what it is. And like with Going Ballistic, it's just like, did you know that you're not prepared in your community for a mass shooting, and that there's actually a piece of equipment that could aid in that, and it's $5,000. And the day after the event, that would probably be real easy to raise, but on the day before, everybody wants somebody else to do it.
Right.
And so I'm just excited. I'm excited for this event. I'm excited to have you coming to Texas, because Barb's up in New York fighting the good fight amongst the enemy, the enemy within. And, here in Texas, it's the same thing. And I'm just inviting all our viewers to go to goingballistic.org, get your tickets, or just try to support us. Start your own little chapter. We'll help you do whatever you want to do. And so for all of Barb's members and fans, we just want to come alongside as a Going Ballistic and help you guys just speak truth into this craziness. And so I just appreciate all your hard work for as long as you've been doing it, and also for your time today.
Okay. Thank you for having me on. I'm so excited to come to your event out there in a couple of weeks. I feel like I keep saying I'm an honorary Texan, because although I live in New York, I keep coming back to Texas, and it's always for a great reason. I'm just really proud to be in your circle now and part of your event and your work. I think for anybody listening to this, catching this, even if you're catching this after the event, there are still ways you can get involved, still ways you can support. You can reach out to someone like Donna, reach out to someone like me. We'll help you connect with the people that are interested in the areas that you're interested in, or unless you just want to support one of these causes directly, we can do that too. So thank you for having me on, Donna. I appreciate you so much. And again, I'm looking forward to what's to come.
111, 110.